Imagine waking in the dead of night, your heart pounding, a strange pulse throbbing beneath your skin. Not just an itch, but a living, crawling terror. What would you do if the truth behind that sensation was more horrifying than your darkest fears? Stay with us for a story that will grip your soul, challenge your understanding of responsibility, and reveal the unbreakable strength of a mother and daughter facing a nightmare. You won't believe what lies beneath. Lila Monroe woke to a sensation that didn't belong. It was 2:17 a.m., the digital clock on her nightstand casting a faint red glow across her small bedroom in the Crestwood Pines apartment complex. The air was heavy with the stale heat of late June, the window unit rattling uselessly against the humidity. Lila's heart pounded, not from a nightmare. She was too old for those, she told herself, but from something deeper, more visceral. The small bump on her neck, which her mother Rachel had dismissed as a mosquito bite, now pulsed with a rhythm that felt alive, foreign, and wrong. She reached for Hoot, her plastic owl flashlight, its cracked beak a testament to countless adventures. The beam flickered as she clicked it on, illuminating her trembling hands. Lila was 9, small for her age but fierce in spirit, with eyes like polished sapphires and a curiosity that burned brighter than the stars. She slipped out of bed, her bare feet cold against the linoleum, and padded to the bathroom, driven by a need to see, to know. The mirror revealed a horror. The bump, once a pinprick she'd barely noticed, had swollen to the size of a grape, its surface an angry red with a dark, shifting core. Lila's stomach lurched, her breath catching in, her throat. Things didn't move under your skin, or did they? She leaned closer, the flashlight's beam trembling in her grip. As she stared, frozen in terror, the center of the swelling split, and something emerged. A thin, black tendril, twitching like a blind insect seeking escape. Her scream tore through the silence of their cramped apartment, a sound so primal it seemed to shatter the night itself. Rachel Monroe was yanked from a fitful sleep, her body aching from a double shift. At 36, she bore the weight of a life ground, down by loss and struggle. Her face, once soft with optimism, was now etched with lines of exhaustion, her hazel eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. She bolted to the bathroom, her heart hammering. The remnants of a dream, her husband Caleb smiling in his firefighter's gear, dissolving into panic. "Lila, what's wrong?" she gasped, but the sight of her daughter's neck stopped her cold. The swelling was grotesque, a pulsing mass that defied reason. The dark tendril, barely visible now, seemed to retreat under Lila's skin. Rachel's nurse's training kicked in, her mind racing through possibilities. Abscess, cellulitis, something parasitic. But the mother in her wanted to scream, to scoop Lila into her arms and run. "Oh, God," she whispered, her hands trembling, as she touched Lila's shoulder. "We're going to the hospital, now." Lila's eyes, wide with fear, locked onto her mother's. "It hurts, Mom. It feels alive." Rachel forced a calm she didn't feel, pulling Lila close. "We're going to fix this, sweetheart, I promise." She grabbed her keys, a jacket, and Lila's sneakers, her mind a storm of guilt. She'd dismissed the bump 3 days ago, chalking it up to a summer bug bite. Crestwood was humid, the creek behind their complex a breeding ground for mosquitoes. She was a nurse. She should have known better. Their apartment was a testament to Rachel's defiance. Despite water-stained ceilings, drafty windows, and a persistent roach problem, she kept it spotless, a small act of resistance against their circumstances. The 2-bedroom unit, perched on the edge of Crestwood's industrial zone, was the cheapest Rachel could find after selling their home to cover her mother's medical bills. Caleb's death 4 years ago had left a void no amount of scrubbing could fill. A volunteer firefighter, he died in a warehouse blaze, his bravery immortalized in a plaque at the fire station. Rachel wore his silver wedding band, engraved, with their initials as a daily reminder of what she'd lost and what she was fighting to preserve for Lila. Lila was Rachel's anchor, her reason to keep going. Small but fierce, she had her father's love of adventure and her mother's stubborn resolve. She spent her summer days exploring the overgrown lot behind their complex, collecting feathers, stones, and the occasional beetle in a mason jar. Rachel admired her daughter's spirit, but worried about the dangers lurking in those untamed spaces. A creek with an oily sheen, rusted machinery half buried in the weeds, and the looming shadow of the Grayson chemical plant. Their landlord, Victor Grayson, owned half of Crestwood, including the plant that dominated the horizon. His daughter, Sophia, attended Lila's school but lived in a world of privilege, her pristine uniforms a stark contrast to Lila's thrift store clothes and free school lunches. Rachel's only support came from Mrs. Alvarez, a retired school teacher, next door who occasionally watched Lila and the school's meal program. Pride kept Rachel from applying for assistance. She clung to the fading memory of a middle-class life, even as it slipped further away. The drive to Crestwood General was a blur, Rachel's hands gripping the wheel as Lila clutched Hoot, her flashlight a talisman against the dark. The emergency room was a chaotic sea of coughing patients, crying children, and overworked staff. Rachel's old nursing badge, tucked in her wallet, was a relic of a life she could barely remember. She approached the triage desk, her voice steady despite her fear. "My daughter has an infected wound on her neck. It's serious." The nurse, recognizing Rachel from her nursing days, expedited their intake, but the financial barrier loomed. "There's a $420 balance from your last visit," the receptionist said, her tone apologetic but firm. Rachel's hands shook as she handed over her nearly maxed-out credit card, knowing it would mean skipping groceries next week. Lila, pale and trembling, leaned against her, her trust in her mother unshaken. Dr. Elena Torres, a seasoned ER physician, examined Lila's neck with a frown. "This is more than an infection," she said, her gloved fingers probing the swelling. "It's an abscess, possibly something worse. We need to drain it immediately." Rachel nodded, guilt clawing at her. She'd dismissed the bump as a mosquito bite, a common summer nuisance. Her nurse's training should have caught this, but exhaustion and distraction had dulled her instincts. Lila was prepped for a minor surgical procedure under local anesthesia. Rachel stood by her side, stroking her hair and whispering reassurances. "You're so brave, sweetheart. Daddy would be proud." Lila's eyes, wide with fear, locked onto her mother's. "Is it going to hurt?" Dr. Torres, softening her clinical demeanor, crouched to Lila's level. "You'll feel pressure, but we'll make sure you're comfortable. We're going to fix this." The incision was swift, releasing a flood of foul-smelling pus. But then, something unthinkable emerged. A large, engorged insect, its body swollen and writhing, a bedbug, impossibly alive inside Lila's neck. The room froze. "What the hell is that?" Dr. Torres muttered, extracting it with forceps. Two smaller bugs followed, each sealed in a specimen jar. Rachel gagged, her mind reeling. How could this happen? Lila, groggy but aware, whispered, "Are they gone, Mom?" Rachel forced a smile, her voice strained. "They're gone, baby. You're safe now." But safe was a lie. The horror of parasites living inside her daughter's body shattered Rachel's fragile composure. Dr. Torres, her face pale but resolute, ordered immediate lab analysis. "This isn't normal bedbug behavior. We need to test these in your apartment." Rachel's world tilted. Her home, her daughter, her past, all were under siege. She looked at Lila, her small form dwarfed by the hospital bed, and made a silent vow. Whatever it took, she would protect her. But the truth, as she would soon discover, was far darker than she could imagine. What would you do if the home you fought to protect became a battlefield, poisoned by greed and betrayal? Stay with us as Rachel Monroe and her daughter Lila face a nightmare that tests their courage, exposes a chilling conspiracy, and reveals the power of community to heal even the deepest wounds. The truth is darker than you think. Rachel Monroe sat in the sterile light of Crestwood General's emergency room, her hands clasped tightly around a styrofoam cup of lukewarm coffee. The antiseptic smell, once a comfort from her days as a pediatric nurse, now felt like an accusation. Lila, her 9-year-old daughter, lay on a gurney behind a thin curtain, her neck bandaged after the horrifying surgical removal of bedbugs, from her flesh. Rachel's mind churned, replaying the moment Dr. Elena Torres had extracted the writhing parasites, their engorged bodies glistening under the surgical light. How had she let this happen? She was a nurse, trained to spot danger. Yet, she'd dismissed Lila's bump as a mosquito bite, a trivial summer nuisance. The ER buzzed with controlled chaos, a child's wail, a nurse's clipped orders, the beep of monitors. Rachel barely noticed. Her world had narrowed to Lila's pale face, her sapphire eyes dulled by pain and medication. The financial blow of this visit loomed like a storm cloud. $420 for the outstanding balance, charged to a credit card already groaning under debt. Groceries would be rationed again, utilities deferred. But money was a distant concern compared to the guilt gnawing at her. She'd failed Lila, her only anchor in a life battered by loss. 4 years ago, Rachel's husband, Caleb, had died in a warehouse fire, his volunteer firefighter's bravery etched into a plaque at the Crestwood station. The loss had gutted her, leaving a void filled only by Lila's fierce spirit. Financial ruin followed. Medical bills for her mother's diabetes, the foreclosure of their modest home. They'd landed in Crestwood Pines, a crumbling apartment complex on the edge of the industrial zone, where the air carried the faint tang of chemicals from Victor Grayson's plant. Rachel worked 2 jobs, days at the Rusty Spoon Diner, nights, cleaning offices at Pinnacle Corporate Park. Her hands, once gentle healers, were now raw from bleach, her body a map of exhaustion. Lila was Rachel's mirror, and her opposite. Small for her age, with a tangle of chestnut curls and a curiosity that defied their circumstances, she explored the overgrown lot behind their complex, collecting treasures in mason jars. Rachel admired her daughter's resilience but feared the dangers lurking there. A creek with an oily sheen, rusted machinery, the ever-present hum of Grayson's factory. Their landlord, Victor Grayson, owned half the town, his wealth a stark contrast to their poverty. His daughter, Sophia, attended Lila's school, her designer backpack a silent taunt against Lila's thrift store clothes. Rachel's phone buzzed, snapping her back to the present. A text from Mrs. Alvarez, their neighbor. Pest control at the complex. Bed bugs everywhere. Call me. Rachel's stomach dropped. Bed bugs in their apartment? She'd scrubbed every surface, washed sheets in scalding water, vacuumed daily. How had this slipped through? She dialed Mrs. Alvarez, her voice tight. What's going on, Rosa? It's bad, mija, Mrs. Alvarez said, her voice trembling. They're tearing apart the walls, found bugs in every unit. They're saying we can't go back for days. Rachel closed her eyes, the weight of another displacement crushing her. Their apartment, meager as it was their sanctuary. Now it was a biohazard. Dr. Torres emerged, her expression grim but professional. Lila's stable, she said, pulling Rachel aside. The antibiotics are working and the drain is clear, but we need to talk about those bedbugs. Rachel followed her to a quiet corner, her heart pounding. Torres's voice was low, urgent. The lab's preliminary results show chemical contamination, permethrin, dichlorvos, industrial solvents. These bugs aren't just surviving, they're thriving in an environment that should kill them. We've alerted the county health department. Rachel's mind flashed to the creek where Lila played, its water shimmering with an unnatural sheen. The creek behind our complex, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It runs from Grayson's plant. You're saying it's poisoned? Torres nodded. We're testing water samples now. But Rachel, these bugs burrowed into Lila's skin. That's not normal bedbug behavior. Something's altered them. The revelation was a knife to Rachel's chest. Her home, her daughter's playground, was a toxic wasteland. And she'd let Lila wander there, trusting the woods to be a safe haven. What do we do? She asked, her voice cracking. Torres's eyes softened. For now, stay here. The hospital has a family apartment for cases like this. We're investigating your building as a public health risk. Rachel nodded, numb. She returned to Lila's side, brushing a curl from her daughter's forehead. Lila stirred, her voice weak. Mom, can I go home soon? Rachel forced a smile, her heart breaking. Not yet, sweetheart. The doctors want to make sure you're all better. Lila's fingers drifted to her bandage, a reflex born of pain. Was it really bugs inside me? Mia said it's like a horror movie. Rachel hesitated, torn between shielding Lila and giving her the truth she deserved. Yes, honey, she said gently. There were bugs, but the doctors got them out. You're safe now. Lila's face scrunched in disgust. Gross. Were they like the ones at home? The flat ones? Rachel nodded, her throat tight. Similar. That's why we're staying here for a bit. Our apartment needs a big cleaning. Lila's eyes searched her mother's, seeking reassurance. You won't let them come back, right? Rachel squeezed her hand, her voice firm despite her fear. I won't. I promise. But promises felt hollow when the enemy was invisible, lurking in the walls of their home. Rachel's mind raced, piecing together the puzzle. Grayson's plant, the creek, the sudden pest invasion. None of it felt like a coincidence. As Lila drifted back to sleep, Rachel stepped into the hallway to call her mother Diane, hoping for a lifeline. Diane's voice was frail, her diabetes, sapping her strength. I've got $30 until my check comes, she said. It's yours if you need it. Rachel declined, her pride a stubborn shield. We're okay, Mom. Just keep Lila in your prayers. Hanging up, she leaned against the wall, exhaustion pulling at her. She was a nurse, a mother, a widow, but tonight, she felt like a failure. When does a mistake become a betrayal? Keep reading as Rachel's choices push Lila closer to the edge, revealing a truth that will stun you. Morning light filtered through the hospital's family apartment. A small but clean space with a twin bed, a pull-out couch, and a kitchenette. Lila sat at the table, coloring in a book one of the nurses had given her bandage a stark white against her fair skin. Rachel watched her daughter, marveling at her resilience. Lila's fever was down, her pain manageable. But the trauma lingered in her eyes, a shadow Rachel couldn't erase. Mrs. Alvarez's call had shaken Rachel to her core. Crestwood Pines was a war zone, pest control teams ripping out drywall to expose nests of chemically altered bedbugs. The health department had cordoned off the building, and residents were barred from returning. Rachel's belongings, Lila's, school books, Caleb's photos, their meager wardrobe, were trapped in a toxic limbo. The thought of losing what little they had was a fresh wound, but the deeper cut was the realization that their home had betrayed them. Dr. Torres arrived mid-morning, her tablet glowing with lab reports. The water samples from the creek confirm our suspicions, she said, her voice low to avoid alarming Lila. High levels of permethrin, dichlorvos, and heavy metals. Grayson's plant has been dumping waste for years, likely decades. The bedbugs in Lila's neck show the same chemical signature. Rachel's hands clenched, her nails biting into her palms. So the creek poisoned the bugs, and the bugs poisoned my daughter? Torres nodded, her expression grim. It's a cascade effect. Low-level exposure made the bugs resistant, even aggressive. Burrowing into skin isn't their natural behavior. It's a mutation. Rachel's nursing knowledge clicked into place, her mind racing through toxicology lectures from years ago. And Lila's immune system couldn't fight them off because of the chemicals? Torres hesitated. Possibly. We're still analyzing her blood work. But Rachel, this is a public health crisis. The county's launching a full investigation. Rachel's rage simmered, directed at Grayson, at herself, at a system that let this happen. What about our apartment? Our things? Torres's eyes softened. The health department's treating it as a hazmat site. Soft items, clothes, furniture may need to be destroyed. They're setting up a retrieval protocol for hard items, but it'll take time. Time was a luxury Rachel didn't have. Her diner job was at risk after calling in sick, and her cleaning gig demanded makeup shifts. She couldn't afford a motel, and her mother's one-bedroom apartment, thick with cigarette smoke, was no place for Lila's recovery. The hospital apartment was a temporary reprieve, but what came next? Rachel's pride, a shield against charity, wavered. She couldn't do this alone. Lila's voice broke her spiral. Mom, can Hoot come with us when we leave? She held up, her owl flashlight. its cracked beak a badge of their shared battles. Rachel smiled, her heart aching. Of course, sweetheart. Hoot's part of the team. Lila's grin was a flicker of light in the darkness, a reminder of why Rachel fought. That afternoon, Rachel called Sarah Bennett, her former colleague and estranged friend. Sarah, now a microbiologist at Crestwood General, had been a confidant during Rachel's nursing days, but their friendship had fractured after Caleb's death. Sarah's offers of help had felt like pity, and Rachel's grief had turned defensive, pushing her away. But Sarah was the best person to dig deeper into the bedbug mystery. Sarah arrived within the hour, her lab coat crisp, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun. "I heard about Lila," she said, her tone professional but warm. "I'm so sorry, Rachel." Rachel swallowed her pride, handing over the stuffed rabbit she'd found by their door. "This came yesterday, with a note saying it was from Caleb's unit. I need to know if it's safe." Sarah's examination was swift, her gloved hands probing the rabbit's seams. "There are bedbug casings here," she said, her voice tight. "I'll run a full analysis, but this doesn't feel random." Rachel's heart sank. The note, signed by a Sergeant John Carter, had stirred memories of Caleb, a painful but precious connection. Now it felt like a trap. Sarah's lab results came back that evening, confirming Rachel's fears. "The bugs in the rabbit match those from Lila's neck," Sarah said, her eyes meeting Rachel's over a cup of hospital coffee. "Same chemical contamination. But here's the kicker. There's no record of a Sergeant John Carter in Caleb's unit. The note's a fake." Rachel's grief reignited, a raw wound torn open. Someone had used Caleb's memory to harm her daughter, a cruelty beyond comprehension. What would you do if your grief was weaponized against you? Stay with us as Rachel uncovers a conspiracy that threatens everything. Rachel sat in the hospital apartment's dim light, the stuffed rabbit sealed in a plastic bag on the table. Lila slept on the twin bed, her breathing steady, the bandage on her neck a stark reminder of their ordeal. Sarah's revelation about the fake note burned in Rachel's mind, a betrayal that cut deeper than the bedbugs themselves. Caleb had been her rock, his laughter a melody she still heard in quiet moments. To have his memory twisted into a weapon was an assault on her soul. Sarah lingered, her usual composure softened by concern. "I've contacted the county health department," she said. "They're sending inspectors to Grayson's plant tomorrow." "But Rachel, this rabbit, it's deliberate. Someone wanted to divert attention from the creek." Rachel's hands trembled, her wedding band glinting under the fluorescent light. "Grayson," she said, her voice a low growl. "He owns the plant, the land, half the damn town. He's been trying to buy Crestwood Pines for years." Sarah nodded, pulling up a property deed on her tablet. "Grayson Chemical owns the creek and the adjacent woods. They've been lobbying to rezone the apartment complex for industrial use. A bedbug infestation, blamed on tenants, would tank the property value, letting him swoop in." Rachel's rage flared, a wildfire fed by years of struggle. And Lila was collateral damage? My daughter, targeted to cover his tracks? "It's a theory," Sarah cautioned, "but a strong one. The health department's seizing his records. If there's evidence of illegal dumping, he's done." Rachel's mind raced, piecing together Grayson's dismissive attitude, his daughter Sophia's curious glances at Lila's neck during school pickup. Had Sophia said something to her father? Was the rabbit a panicked attempt to shift blame? Rachel's phone buzzed, a voicemail from her diner manager. "You didn't show up today, Rachel. We're letting you go. Pick up your last check Friday." The words were a gut punch. One job gone, her cleaning gig hanging by a thread. She sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. Sarah touched her shoulder, a gesture that bridged their years of distance. "You don't have to do this alone," she said. "Let me help." Rachel's pride, a fortress she'd built to survive, crumbled. "I don't know where to start," she admitted, her voice breaking. Sarah's eyes were steady. "Start with Lila. She needs you strong. Then we fight Grayson together." Rachel nodded, tears spilling over. For the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. The next morning, Lila woke with a spark of her old energy. "Can I color outside today?" she asked, clutching her book. Rachel hesitated, the hospital's sterile walls a poor substitute for the woods Lila loved. "Let's try the courtyard," she said, forcing a smile. As Lila sketched butterflies, Rachel called the district attorney's office, her voice firm, despite her fear. "I want to file a complaint against Victor Grayson," she said, detailing the rabbit, the creek, and Lila's suffering. The DA, Jonathan Hayes, listened intently. "We're building a case," he said. "Environmental violations, reckless endangerment, possibly attempted manslaughter. Your testimony could be key." Rachel agreed, her resolve hardening. Grayson had poisoned her home, her daughter, her memories. He would answer for it. What would you sacrifice to protect your child? Keep reading as Rachel's fight for justice exposes a web of deceit. The county health department descended on Crestwood Pines like a storm, their hazmat suits a stark contrast to the complex's faded brick. Inspectors tore through walls, revealing nests of bedbugs pulsing with unnatural vigor. The creek, tested at multiple points, was a toxic soup of industrial waste, its contamination tracing directly to Grayson's plant. The EPA was called in, and a cease and desist order shuttered the factory pending investigation. Rachel cooperated fully, meeting with Hayes and his team to recount every detail. Grayson's dismissive attitude during maintenance requests, the sudden pest control inspections, the rabbit's arrival. Sophia Grayson, questioned at school, admitted mentioning Lila's neck to her father, unaware of his plans. A whistleblower from the plant, a chemist named Maria Chen, came forward with records of illegal dumping dating back a decade. Grayson's scheme was chillingly clear: pollute the creek, infest the complex, force an evacuation, and buy the land for pennies. The community's outrage was palpable. Neighbors who had once whispered about Rachel's parenting rallied, organizing protests. Outside Grayson's office, Mrs. Alvarez, her arthritis be damned, handed out flyers demanding accountability. Lila, still recovering, became a symbol of the town's betrayal, her scar a silent accusation. Grayson's arrest came on a rainy Tuesday, his smug demeanor crumbling as handcuffs clicked. Charges piled up: environmental crimes, reckless endangerment, conspiracy. The rabbit, traced to a local thrift store, was a desperate ploy to pin the infestation on an external source. Rachel's testimony, delivered in a packed courtroom, was a catharsis. "He used my husband's memory to hurt my daughter," she said, her voice steady. "He poisoned our home, our trust. He doesn't get to walk away." Lila, watching from the hospital apartment's TV, clutched hoot. "Is the bad man going to jail?" she asked, her voice small but fierce. Rachel smoothed her hair. "He's going to answer for what he did, sweetheart. We made sure of it. Can you stand against a giant and win? Stay with us as Rachel and Lila reclaim their future from the ashes of betrayal." 6 months later, Crestwood Pines was a ghost town, its residents relocated with restitution funds from Grayson's plea deal. 10 years in prison, millions in fines. Rachel and Lila had settled into a small house owned by Sarah's brother, a cozy 2-bedroom near Lila's school. Rachel had returned to nursing at Crestwood General's pediatric clinic, her skills a lifeline once more. Lila, now 10, thrived, her scar a quiet badge of courage. The community rallied to create the Caleb Monroe Memorial Garden, a symbol of healing. At its dedication, Rachel spoke to a crowd of neighbors, her voice strong. Caleb believed in building beauty no matter the odds. "This garden is our promise to heal together, to hold each other up." Lila, clutching a trowel, broke ground, her hand brushing her scar with wonder, not fear. That night, Rachel and Sarah sat on the porch, stars glinting above. Lila called her scar her bravery mark today, Rachel said, smiling. Sarah nodded. "It's a story of survival." Rachel squeezed her hand. "We're going to be okay, aren't we?" Sarah's eyes shone. "You already are. What does it mean to rise from ruin? Keep reading as Rachel and Lila find hope in the heart of their community. Flashbacks to Rachel's early marriage with Caleb revealed her strength and vulnerabilities, paralleling her current fight. Lila's nightmares persisted, but therapy helped her process the trauma, her drawings evolving from dark scribbles to vibrant scenes of gardens and stars. Rachel and Sarah rebuilt their friendship, their Sunday dinners a new tradition. Rachel faced her pride, applying for veterans' benefits to secure Lila's future. A neighbor, Mrs. Carter, apologized for past judgment, her own struggles mirroring Rachel's. The community's support grew, with volunteers tending the garden. Lila's resilience shone, her scar a symbol of what Peterson calls voluntary confrontation with the unknown. Rachel, mentoring a young nurse, found purpose in passing on her wisdom. How do you heal a wound that lingers? Stay with us as Rachel and Lila redefine courage. Rachel confronted her guilt, accepting help from a veterans aid program that covered her mother's bills. A community meeting solidified plans for the garden as an educational hub, with Lila's class designing a butterfly habitat. Rachel's diner co-workers sent a care package, a gesture that softened her defenses. She forgave herself, recognizing that survival demanded imperfect choices. Lila's therapy sessions revealed her strength, her bravery mark, a source of pride. Rachel, reflecting on Peterson's rule to stand up straight with your shoulders, Bax embraced her role as a leader in the clinic and community. A quiet moment with Sarah watching Lila play sealed their renewed bond. What does it mean to forgive yourself? Keep reading as Rachel finds peace in her scars. Spring brought the garden to life, its wildflowers attracting butterflies. Lila's science project on environmental restoration won a school award, her presentation a tribute to her father. Rachel mentored a new nurse, her empathy a gift honed by struggle. The community celebrated the garden's opening, with Mrs. Alvarez planting a rosebush in Caleb's honor. Rachel and Lila visited Caleb's plaque at the fire station, a moment of closure. Lila's hand brushed her scar, her smile radiant. "Dad would love this," she said. Rachel nodded, tears falling. "He'd love you most of all." Can beauty grow from pain? Stay with us as Rachel and Lila plant seeds for a brighter future. Jordan Peterson teaches that meaning lies in taking responsibility for suffering, forging order from chaos. Rachel and Lila's journey embodies this, their scars, visible and invisible, testaments to survival. The garden, a collective act of redemption, reflects Peterson's call to build community through shared purpose. Rachel, now a pillar at the clinic, mentored others, her empathy a beacon. Lila, thriving at school, led a garden club, her scar, a story she shared with pride. Sarah, a constant presence, joined their Sunday dinners, their friendship a bridge rebuilt. As they watched the stars, Rachel felt hope, a fragile but fierce light. This is more than a story, it's a challenge. Subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment. What scars do you carry, and how have they shaped you? Stay with us for more tales of courage, redemption, and the unbreakable human spirit.